ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in storytelling land. Let's welcome Modeira Johnson.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Soul food. Man, I tell you, if I was Don Cornelius, man, look, I'd say it the same way he says Soul Train. But at the end of the day, I just want to thank you guys so much for joining us. I want to give a shout out to the entire staff and production crew of the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers. Satori, thank you so much for the invitation. I've done this with you once before, and I swear it has changed my life, and I'm sure it has also touched the lives of others. The main thing about soul food is that, as Cheryl was stating when I answered that question, it's like, it's that deep down nostalgic thing. And when I talk about nostalgia today, I'm going to be somewhat candid. Now, although this story may not be one that brings about a lot of laughter for a lot of people, but I guarantee you that if you can relate to this story, then you understand why nostalgic is the more of the additive word to describe the story. Now, I was always a loving kid. I mean, I was the one that just craved ass affection and attention. I just wanted it so bad, but it didn't always happen. Like a lot of times, when you watch television and you see those little kids and they do something that's so nice and their father's like, that a boy, good job, great job. That didn't happen for me. I was a little upset about that. At the same token, I was a decent kid. I got decent grades in school, like most kids. When you're young, you're going to talk in class. You may not always be focused. But even with that, I didn't get a whole lot of recognition. It was even to the point where I made model cars and painted them in my dad's favorite color. I thought I'd get that, had a boy, that great job. And it was more like a lackluster gesture of like, it's all right. This kid, my confidence is getting a little shot here because I'm saying to myself, like, really, dude, is this how this is? So I began to wonder, am I even your child? Now I know you think like, man, that's kind of extreme to think about, but here's why I say that. My brother, who's older than me, was named after my father. I would consider him more so to be like my father's pride and joy. The only reason I say that is because he was the first surviving child. So therefore, my father being a Southern man, his thing is like, great, got my boy, got my son, he's here. I'm gonna name him after me. He's gonna do great. He's gonna be this, he's gonna be that. And he gave my brother all this love and affection and attention that I didn't get. And I'm just like, what's going on with this? It even got to a point where it seemed like my father was judging my capabilities against my brother's achievements. What kind of shit is that? It's almost like, if my brother failed at something, and in most cases his ass did, he would just say, well, if your brother can't do it, ain't no hope for you. And I'm just like, dog, what's up with that? Now, mind just time went on. And I would just say probably around about the 5th grade or what have you, my brother didn't quite have the same issues that I had. Being in the 5th grade, I had just left St. Suzanne. I don't know if any of you all from the west side of Detroit, you probably heard of St. Suzanne over on West Chicago. And I swear, at this school, I was taught how to pronounce every R, S, and T. Hell, I even sounded white. And then I get over to Jameson. I mean, elementary school in the hood. We're talking between Linwood, Lawton, Dexter. I mean, the kids that I went to school with, they were none like the kids that I went to school with at St. Suzanne. It got to the point where I was teased so bad that I was chased home and I would run home. Daddy, man. They just simply whooped me in my ass for no reason. I mean, throwing blunt objects into my head, almost putting my eye out. And his response to that was, well, if you hadn't been running your mother effing mouth, you probably wouldn't be getting your ass whooped. And I'm just like, oh, these are people who shouldn't even be in the 5th grade. They should be in the 6th and 7th grade, and they're bullying me, man. Help. So at the same token, I'm saying to myself, well, I know my mom will help me out, but that's mom. Kind of like what most kids expect mom to just do these things because mom is just always around. And it's not so much that they take mom for granted, but it's expected. And I'm saying to myself, you can tell me that I should keep my mouth shut, but why couldn't you go up to the school and tell a bunch of 5th graders to lay off your son? I expected him to be that hero, but he wasn't. He failed to do that. And it's okay Because at the same token, during that same year, because this is when my mom, she was going to school to be a nurse. And so that 1 year that she was in the nursing school, she had to stay with my aunt. God bless her soul. But while we were staying there, now my brother is like, I mean, he's like the world's biggest and greatest liar. I mean, if his ass had to tell the truth to save his life, he'd say, watch me become the life and the resurrection. And we all be standing around past 3 days waiting to see if his ass is going to resurrect. He'd rather die than to tell the truth. So while we're at my aunt's house and she made spaghetti, and I'll never forget this day. Now, I'm not saying the story is funny, but y'all gonna laugh with me, so let's just roll with it. So my aunt made the spaghetti and she said, listen, y'all can only get 1 slice of bread because it's not enough for everybody to get seconds. So my brother decides, I'm just gonna take another slice of bread. Being a fat, greedy ass kid, this is what he did. He took that extra slice of bread when my cousin came in. He said, Mama, ain't no bread for me to eat. She's looking at us saying, okay, who took more than 1 slice of bread? So my brother's just laughing. Oh, D did it. That's my nickname for those of y'all who don't know that. Oh, D took the extra slice of bread. He took the extra slice of bread. And I'm like, no, I didn't. I didn't take that bread. But because he was the oldest, most people believed him. He was my dad's pride and joy. My dad just pretty much laid the world out to him, took his word for everything. And can you believe that my aunt took an ironing cord belt and beat my ass so bad you would have thought that I was beat by a white master as a runaway slave. Them damn welts on my back was thick, purple, blue, red, and were splitting. It was so bad that when my back was hurting in school the next day, I happened to reach over to pick up my book bag. My shirt came out of my pants, and one of the kids saw my back, told the teacher to look at it, and he ended up calling Child Protective Services on my aunt. Now, granted, this happened many years ago. But to this day, not that I expected it, but I never got an apology for that. So my brother lied on me and got my ass beat so bad to the point where he looked like, hey, dog, ain't got nothing to do with that. He had everything to do with that. So as time goes on, I'm just saying to myself, like, okay, listen, there's this great disparity between my brother and I. It's like, at this point, we were in a different school. I think I was at Bobian at this point. My grades weren't doing the greatest because of the family issues we had. But as I got on to high school, and one day I remember missing a bus, or the bus just didn't show up, whatever it was in the wintertime. My dad gave me a ride to school. As we were driving, he just said in a very nonchalant tone, it was like, you know what, maybe you should just go ahead, drop out of school, get a goddamn GED and go to Job Corps. And I'm just saying to myself, like, man, what is your problem? So I told him, I said, look, Daddy, I don't appreciate you saying that to me. Who the hell do you think I am? Now I thought I was going to lose a couple teeth by saying that, but I just said, better yet, why don't you stop the car? I will get out and I walk to school. You ain't got to do another thing for me. Tell you what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to day school, night school, and summer school, if that's what it takes for me to graduate with my class. And I'll be damned if I did it. Class 1989, Redford High School, represent Huskies. Okay, so anyway, now, before I graduated from high school, my dad and I were talking. He said, well, I spent all my money the year before helping your brother with his graduation activities. So you won't be getting a yearbook and your senior dues paid to go to Cedar Point or wherever it is that we were going that year. And I'm saying to myself, you did all of this shit a year ago. My old man cleared about $80,000 after taxes. And you mean to tell me a year later, you couldn't even pay for my senior activities? So needless to say, I graduated from high school. I don't have a yearbook. I don't have senior pictures. Don't have none of that. And it's okay. So I get to college. Now, the wonder in this college thing is that, because of the family issues we were having, I graduated with a 1.76. But when I enrolled at Wayne State University, I ended up enrolling into their College of Lifelong Learning, which is the division of community education. It's kind of like if you don't have the grades to become a full-time on-campus student, you can take classes up to 30 credit hours at the satellite centers and I took mine at the Northwest Activity Center. And I did that until I completed 30 hours. I completed 30 credit hours. I had a 3.89. I even told my dad a week before they had this ceremony to honor those of us who went through the program. I said, I'm getting an honors for the award and an honor award for completion. He said, okay, fine, I'll be there. I think he showed his ass up maybe about an hour and a half after the whole thing was over. And I'm just saying, you know what? Not so much that I expected you to be there. I just didn't expect you to do this. So as time went on, I met my ex-wife. 6 months later, we got married. And we were just so excited to be married because we wanted something different than what we had. She came from a troubled background. Of course, I came from one. We just wanted to be able to love each other and simply have a family. We didn't know what the hell that looked like. We just know we didn't like what we was looking at. So like most people who fall in love, they really think that they're going to get this different lifestyle, one that they've never seen, one that they never experienced. And you end up finding out that there's a lot of trauma there from childhood that ain't healed. And when you get into a relationship and you're not healed, all that stuff's going to come out. And man, did it come out. So 16 years later, 6 kids and a divorce, I began to look at the script that played out in my childhood when I was a kid. And although I didn't treat my children the way that I was treated, I saw that my marriage didn't last. I saw that perhaps maybe my dad was justified in a lot of things he did in that marriage to my mother. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But I began to look at myself and I'm like, I want something better for my children. So a little more time went on. I began to talk to a couple of friends of mine about, what was it like for you when you grew up in a 2-parent household? So my dad and I, at this point, this is about 2 years ago, we started this healing path of our relationship. Because after all, he's my dad. I can't choose my family. I can choose my friends. Now, kind of got this thing where I believe that your friends are the family that God didn't allow you to be born with. And so with that, I'm not upset at that because I have friends that are like family and that are closer than family. And in some cases treat me better than some family members do. Hey, no hate, no shade to the family members watching me tell this story. I'm just going to tell it like it is. I ain't saying no names. However, I'm just telling my story. Okay. So as my dad and I are spending time going to breakfast, going to get coffee, I would take my sons with me. I would take my youngest son and my oldest twin son. And my dad noticed how my sons respected me. He saw our relationship. He saw that we had fun. He saw that I allowed my children to be independent thinkers. I allowed them to be themselves. And he admired that. He began to talk to my sons and he realized, like, I got some grandkids that are really doing good. For a long time, we didn't really talk a whole lot. But in these last few years, he's begun to understand something about me. And in that understanding, he saw what I was doing with my children was something he didn't do with us. I don't think he felt bad about it. I just think he noticed and saw something that he wanted to do, and he finally had a chance to see it through his grandkids. But that wasn't it. So as we would go and have breakfast on March 1st this year, I was talking to a good friend of mine, and she began to tell me about her younger cousin. Her younger cousin just got married. About a year later, she had a baby, but she was telling me about how this girl was raised. She was saying that her cousin was raised in a manner where her parents protected her, they loved her, gave her love, allowed her to be herself. But they made sure no matter what problems they had, this child knew that she was loved. And she said that she married a dude who had the same family background. And they had about maybe 4, maybe 5 other friends that were married. They had the same background, same cultivation, the same parenthood. And I'm saying to myself, wow, I'm listening to this and I'm getting choked up with emotions. And I just cried out loud. And all I could say was, why the hell didn't you protect me? And it got pin drop quiet. And the next question came as I'm still crying. It's just like, what the hell did I ever do to you as a kid to make you treat me like this? Still crying, still loud. I said, was I that bad of a damn child that I deserve to be treated like this? And the last thing I said, you could have kept your goddamn mouth shut and not belittle me and talk me down like this. And I cried for about another hour and a half. Because I mean, man, this was some heavy shit. And I mean, I'm thinking to myself, finally, I got a chance to say what I've been wanting to say for the last 41 years. Problem was, my father wasn't in that room to hear that. So I was seeing a therapist in January of this year, you know, and it's nothing against seeing a therapist. I want people to not feel ashamed. Being able to do a mental checkup with a therapist in the Black community has been something that we've talked down on, say, this is why you crazy. But all the dysfunctional shit that Black people do and go through and want to blame the damn devil, no, it ain't the devil, it's your decision. Your decision to ridicule help where you need it most because you feel somebody's going to judge you differently. So what? Let their judgment asses keep judging. At the same token, when I began to talk to the therapist, it wasn't because of the problems I had. It was to make sure that I wasn't going crazy on the basis of knowing I'm not stupid because I know this happened to me. So as I begin self-healing, as I call it, introspection, meditating, and talking to my therapist maybe once or twice a month, she asked me, have you ever talked to your dad about these things? I said, well, I tried, you know, he shut it down. She said, well, next time you see him, why don't you ask your dad, what was it like for him growing up as a child? So I guess after the next 2 or 3 days, my dad and I, we got together on our coffee run like we typically do. I said, Dad, you know, what was it like for you growing up as a child? And he looked at me with this look and he was like, shit, you really want to know? And as my dad began to tell his story about what it was that he went through as a kid, I'm just sitting in amazement like, well, ain't this some shit? This the same shit you put me through. But I want y'all to say something. This was the only script that he knew. He trusted family that betrayed him. He had parents that died at a younger age. My parents lived, my mom lived till I was about maybe 25, 26. He felt that in taking care of his sisters, he felt that having to deal with family that betrayed him, having to deal with the death of his parents at a young age, my father dealt with a whole lot. And it got to a point where he was picked on by kids in school, which I don't understand why. He couldn't understand why folks was whooping my ass every day, every chance they can get. He said, I felt like killing myself. And he said, the only reason I didn't do that was because I knew my sisters were depending on me and I had to take care of them. Which reminds me of me when I was around 11 years old, going on 12. I felt that my brother had picked on me so bad, they allowed my brother to do that. My brother has lied on me, ridiculed me, got me in trouble. I mean, the humiliation that I got seemed to be endorsed by my dad, and that shit was terrible. It was to the point where I said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fix all their asses. I said, I'm going to commit suicide. And if I don't die by the methods in which I think I'm going to die, if I wake up and the asses ain't in the house, I'm going to kill them all. Now, this ain't quite funny, but I kind of want to tell it in a sense where you can understand the humor in this, because my ass thinking I'm going to kill myself by taking a bunch of orange flavored vitamin C tablets. All I can tell you is that shit made me sleepy. Okay. But I went to sleep now. Obviously I didn't die, but by the time I woke up, they were already in the house. So of course, couldn't go get daddy's gun and kill no one. I don't know if you've heard the story about the Menendez brothers, who they alleged that their parents had been abusing them. And after a while, they couldn't take no more. So they ended up killing their parents. So I understand what it's like when children say that I've been picked on long enough, not by folks in the street, but by my own family, my own siblings, and no one does anything about it. And as a result of that, it's either suicide or homicide. So those are the people that I empathize with, and I pray for them, pray for you if you had those thoughts, but we're going to move right along. So now after my dad and I had this conversation, he started talking about within the last year, he said, you know what, I'm thinking about coming to stay with you. I think that, what I need in this time of my life, I need to be with you. And now this is heartwarming and touching because I'm like, this is something. He's deciding to come live with me. And I'm happy with that. I'm just excited that daddy's coming to live with me. So when he moved in, he had a chance to spend more time with me and my sons. And he and I began to talk, and he was like, I'm just really proud of you at what you're doing with your kids. And I trust that you're going to do a great job and be a great father. But here's what I noticed. As I began to show my father that in spite of how you treated me and how you never told me you were sorry for what you did, I was able to release that pain and that hurt. So therefore, I didn't have to treat my dad with a vengeful spirit or an attitude that's abject to what a son should think and feel towards his father if he loves him. I was able to welcome my dad in the home. And as he gotten weaker and weaker, it was to the point where I was dressing him. Not only dressing him, but I would even spoon feed him. I remember taking him to one of his doctor's appointments. I think it was September 22nd or the 23rd. And the oncologist came back and said, Mr. Johnson, I want you to know that your biopsy results show that you have stage 4 lung cancer. It is also metastasized to your lung. You have stage 4 kidney failure, and your bones are not creating the red blood cells that's needed. My dad was getting a blood transfusion every 4 to 6 days. While we were spending this time together, he ended up going to the hospital. And I began to think about what it is my dad needed from me versus what I needed from him. And the one scripture that I read, it talked about the generational curse. I don't like using generational curse in a sense, because I mean, if the scripture is true to what we believe it to be, and we are under grace and under the curse, then I can't believe that generations after the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ would have any bearings on a curse, but will be all grace, all mercy, and the newness of life. So with this belief, I believe that more so than saying it was a generational curse, I tend to think it's more of a dysfunctional perpetuation of a failed life script. And when I began to heal, I realized that if God visits the iniquities of the 3rd and 4th generation, then I was that 4th generation who was destined and who decided to break the damn curse. And when I did that, I realized that it is the 4th generation that brought healing to the 3rd generation, my father. Because although my children will be the inaugural generation to walk with a script free of dysfunction, I also had the obligation to go and heal the generation before. I had to forgive him for doing the things he didn't understand, doing the things that he did, loving me and treating me the best way that he could based on what he knew. So sadly to say, before I had a chance to, have my dad be a part of what I'm doing tonight, on November 4th, he transitioned from this world. He had a chance to see our first female and Black female vice president. He would motion to me when I was with him on the bedside at the hospital. As I was crying, I took his hand and I would take his hand and just place it on my head. And then after about 2 or 3 minutes, he would pull his hand back and he would do the strong man gesture like this. And he was just telling me, be strong. Just be strong. So I say to you today that I've recorded every conversation I've had with my father. Why did I do that? Because I knew his time on this earth was limited. I knew it was short. So I wanted to be able to take to my children the inaugural generation of a broken curse who's walking in a script filled with love, life, godliness, and integrity. My children will be able to look and see firsthand and be a witness of what God can do to the lives of those who surrender to the will, to the way, to the why. My children can play those recordings back as long as they need to, because they're going to understand where they came from. They will know where they are, and they'll have the confidence to move forward. So I admonish you and any and everybody else, it can be done. Love yourself, love others, love your God. God bless you. Happy holidays. Soul food it is. I want you to know that I love you. I thank you all for listening. God bless you. Have a happy holiday.
That was truly a story. Modeira, Our board member has a question for you as well. She wants to know if your children have a relationship with your brother.
They do. They have a relationship with them. Um, they are aware of that relationship that we had as kids, and they understand why I have always been adamant as to why they can't treat each other that way. They understand that although, I'll put it to you this way, they know that I love them and they are my favorite child. I told every child individually, you're my favorite child. So when they talk and they say, Daddy say I'm his favorite child, they are all my favorite child. So no one can say that Daddy loves them more than the other. And none of them will ever experience me picking and choosing one child over them, or allowing a child to belittle them, to allow another child to just vehemently, just them, to make them feel, to humiliate them or debase them. So their confidence will not be eroded, but it will be built on love, brotherhood, and the desire, but also the mandate to love and take care of each other.
Someone wants to know how old your children are now.
My oldest son is 24. My oldest daughter is 23. My youngest daughter is 22. The twins are 19, and my youngest son is 17.